正确选择。
The world today is swept by once-in-a-century transformations. The international situation is both fluid and chaotic. China and India are two ancient civilizations in the East. We're the world's two most populous countries, and we're also important members of the global South. We both shoulder the historical responsibility of improving the well-being of our two peoples, promoting the solidarity and rejuvenation of developing countries, and propelling the progress of human society. It is the right choice for both sides to be friends who have good neighborly and amicable ties, partners who enable each other's success, and to have the dragon and the elephant dance together.
This is my video update on this Sunday afternoon, August the 31st, coming to you from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the Israeli assassination of the Prime Minister of Yemen, as well as various cabinet officials in a decapitation strike. My understanding of what happened is that Israel, they found out where the Prime Minister was meeting various government officials in the Yemen capital. And I guess they launched missiles or drones, missiles, I guess, into the capital, into this location, targeting the Prime Minister of Yemen and killing the Prime Minister of Yemen, as well as any other officials that were attending this meeting. The New York Times is reporting, Houthis say Prime Minister was killed in Israeli attack. Ahmed al-Rahawi had led the Houthi cabinet in Yemen since 2024. His killing is unlikely to halt the Iranian-backed group's missile attacks on Israel. So you can see how the New York Times is framing this as some sort of a retaliation strike. Interesting choice of words from the New York Times. His killing is unlikely to halt the Iranian-backed group's missile attacks on Israel. My understanding of the power structure in Yemen, how decisions are made, and I could be wrong about this, but it's my understanding that the Prime Minister's role is mostly symbolic, and so this will not affect the decision-making process of the government authorities in Yemen. But still, it's a decapitation strike of a prime minister, of government officials, and it's quite a dangerous precedent that is being set. I guess you could say that the precedent was set a while ago as far as going after government officials or officials who are in some sort of a government or diplomacy role when Trump assassinated Soleimani, right? Soleimani was on an official visit to Iraq. He was going to meet the Iraqi prime minister when he got off his plane and a U.S. drone killed him. Then you had the decapitation strikes against Iran during the 12-day war that just happened recently, where the Israeli government went after Iranian scientists as well as government officials. Israel actually targeted the president of Iran, Pezeshkian, and they almost got him. Actually, the New York Times connected to this story, in a way connected to this story, since we're talking about decapitation strikes. The New York Times reported that Israel was targeting the Iranian president by targeting the mobile phones of his security, his bodyguards, and his drivers. They managed to gain access to track the mobile devices of Pezeshkian's security detail and his drivers. And that's how they were able to locate Pezeshkian, and they launched missiles into where he was having a meeting. He was having a meeting somewhere in a bunker in Iran, something along those lines. And they launched missiles into that location, and they almost killed him. The Iranian government officials, they don't carry the mobile devices, but what Israel did is they understood that the bodyguards and the drivers would have mobile devices. And so the New York Times was reporting how Israel located these bodyguards, these drivers. They used social media and other sources from within Iran, and they managed to get access into these mobile devices of these people, and they used that information to locate where Pezeshkian was going to be having a meeting, and they almost killed him. What a dangerous freaking precedent, man. To launch decapitation strikes with drones or missiles against another country in that country's capital city or whatever, when they're having government meetings. This is just a horrific, terrible freaking precedent that is being set. Remember how I reported about the Orezhnik, and the Kremlin was having a meeting, and there were some people in the Kremlin that were saying, we should use the Orezhnik to target Bankova, to target Kiev, the headquarters of the Zelensky regime. And what was Putin's response to that? Hell no. No freaking way. Lukashenko was relaying that story. I remember. Yeah, Lukashenko said that there were some people who were saying, let's just send an Orezhnik right into the headquarters of Zelensky. And Putin was saying, no freaking way are we going to do this. And he vetoed the whole thing. Anyway, that was the big news from yesterday. This is not a good development at all for the world, for world safety, security, when you can strike into another city, when countries that have the capability, that have the missiles, the drones, the intel, when they can strike another country into the city to target the leadership and take that leadership out. This is a terrible precedent that's being set. Anyway, something fell in my hair. I don't know. All right, let's continue. Let's continue and talk about an assassination that happened yesterday, and it involved the ex-speaker of the Rada, of the Ukraine parliament. He was not the speaker anymore. At one point in time, he was the speaker of the parliament. He was the head of the whole Banderite coalition, Mr. Andrei Perubi. And there it is. It was some sort of a bug or something. Anyway, Perubi, Andrei Perubi. He was assassinated yesterday in the city of Lvov, and there's video of the assassination. He was walking in the streets of Lvov. He doesn't appear to have any security or any bodyguards or anything. He was just walking on the street, and there was some guy that was pretending to be one of these food delivery guys, and he had a helmet on and everything, and he just walked up right behind Perubi and just assassinated him, and then just got back on his motorcycle or his electric bike or whatever, and left. This guy was a nasty guy, Andrei Perubi. He was one of the leaders of the Maidan. From what I understand, he was one of the people who gave the orders after the Maidan to attack Donbass and start up the attacks and the war in Donetsk and Lugansk. A really bad guy. A Banderite, one of the leading Banderites. He was very close to, my understanding is that he was very close to Newland and to McCain and I think Sikorsky. Said some very complimentary things about Perubi when he learned about his assassination. This guy, at one point in time, he praised the mustache man as the greatest man who practiced direct democracy. Yeah, he was the former parliament speaker. Really, really nasty guy. So who assassinated Perubi? Who knows? Who freaking knows? I imagine he made a lot of enemies. I imagine he knew a lot of information, which would make him a target from all sides, from Ukraine, from Russia, from the United States, from the collective West, from the three-letter agencies. I mean, this guy was on the front lines of the Maidan and the war against Donbass. I actually think there's video of him where he was carrying the sniper rifles during the Maidan so they could start shooting into the crowds. I think there is video on the interwebs of him actually organizing all of that. So look, a Zelensky regime might have taken him out, right? Because, the Zelensky regime is always worried about the Banderites and the pressure and the threats that come from the Banderites. So that's possible. Russia could have taken him out because this guy did some horrific stuff that I'm sure the Russians would like to get back at him. But I would think that the Russians would probably want to capture him and put him on trial. But anyway, this could have been done by Russia. This could have been done by three-letter agencies in the collective West. This could have been done by UK intel, by US intel. I mean, he knew all the details, all the ins and outs, everything about what happened during Maidan and after Maidan. He knew too much, and so maybe they wanted to get rid of him before the Zelensky regime crumbles, before Ukraine collapses. Maybe they were afraid that the Russians would capture him. Who knows? This could have also been something inside the Bandera factions. This could have been oligarchs. We'll never find out. I don't think we will ever find out who assassinated Perubi. So that happened yesterday, and let's stick with Project Ukraine for a bit, and let's talk about Trump's interview with the Daily Caller. He gave an interview to the Daily Caller, and U.S. President Trump, let's see here, he talked about Ukraine security guarantees. He was asked by the interviewer about Ukraine security guarantees. And what did Trump say? He said, no U.S. boots on the ground, but he did say that the U.S. would have some planes flying around in order to provide a backstop to the European presence in Ukraine from these security guarantees. Let me read you what the question was and how Trump answered this. Daily Caller, White House correspondent Reagan Reese said, I want to come back to Russia. Are you still considering with security guarantees using U.S. soldiers? Trump said no. Reese said, and planes in the air? I mean, in the air. Trump, maybe we'll do something. Look, I'd like to see something get solved. They're not our soldiers, but there are 5,000 to 7,000, mostly young people, being killed every single week. If I could stop that and have a plane flying around the air every once in a while, it's going to be mostly the Europeans, but we'd help them. They sort of need it. and we'd help them if we could get something done. Reese, are you concerned at all? I know some of your base thinks that's not our war. Trump, it's not our war. So that was the exchange with regard to security guarantees and what the U.S. would provide to the Europeans, which, going off of Trump's words, is nothing. Right? That's basically what Trump said. Well, we'll have a plane or two flying around. That's the security guarantee that the United States is ready to provide the Europeans. Europeans, go into Ukraine, send your troops, do your security guarantee thing, whatever you're going to do. And as far as the United States is concerned, look, we'll have a plane or two flying around if it helps out. Not very reassuring if you're the Europeans, which would explain why the Telegraph put out an article yesterday where they claim, the UK Telegraph, where they claim that the idea to send 30,000 European troops to Ukraine has completely fallen apart. Basically, the Telegraph is saying that there is no country in Europe that is going to commit significant forces to Project Ukraine. They don't even have significant forces to commit to Project Ukraine, and especially without a significant U.S. backstop, there's no country that's going to do it. Anyway, that was Trump's response to security guarantees. What else did Trump say? He talked about the meeting between Zelensky and Putin, and he has finally come to the understanding. It looks like he's come to the understanding that this bilateral meeting is not going to happen. And so now he's pushing a trilateral meeting. When it's going to happen, Trump doesn't know, but it'll happen, right? I agree with Trump, sure. Who knows when it'll happen, in 3 months, in 1 year, in 2 years. But I'm sure somewhere in the future, there'll be some sort of trilateral meeting between the United States, Russia, and Ukraine. Who will be at that meeting? Who will attend? Who knows? Reese said, you mentioned, I believe, in a Truth Social post that there was a big thing that you and Putin didn't agree on in Alaska. What was that thing? Trump, I don't know. We got along. You saw it. We've had a good relationship over the years. Very good, actually. That's why I really thought we would have this done. I would have loved to have had it done. Maybe they have to fight a little longer. You know, just keep fighting. Stupidity, keep fighting. Reese, do you think a trilateral will still happen? Trump, a tri would happen, a bi, I don't know about, but a tri will happen. But you know, sometimes people aren't ready for it. I use the analogy, I've used it a couple of times. You have a child and there's another child in the lot, in the playground, and they hate each other. And they start swinging, swinging, and swinging. And you want them to stop. And they keep going. After a while, they're very happy to stop. Do you understand that? It's almost that way. Sometimes they have to fight for a little bit before you can get them to stop. This has been going on for a long time. A lot of people are dead. So not the best analogy from President Trump. This is not two kids fighting it out in a playground. This is a proxy war, a coalition proxy war between the United States and the collective West against Russia. This is not two kids who just need to fight it out in some sandbox, in some playground, and after a couple of months, everything will get resolved. This is not a good analogy from U.S. President Trump. Not good at all. But he is coming to the understanding that there's going to be no bilateral meeting between Putin and Zelensky, at least not a bilateral meeting in the way that the Europeans and the collective West want there to be a bilateral meeting. Russia has said that they are not going to sit down with Ukraine. They're not going to have the leadership of Russia sit down with Ukraine so they can discuss territory and freezing of the conflict and stuff like that. Russia has been very clear. These types of discussions need to take place on a technical level with two teams, three teams if you put the United States into this, with various teams of experts. They need to sit down over a significant amount of time. This is not going to resolve within a day or a week. They have to have multiple meetings. They need to get into a lot of details about the conflict, the military situation, all of these things. They have to get resolved before you get a meeting of the leadership. Only once all of these technical, military, security issues get resolved by a team of experts over a certain amount of time, and Putin has said these discussions should be quiet. They should not be publicized. There's no need to announce all of these discussions. These should be taking place in quiet between experts. They need to hammer out some sort of an understanding, a deal, an agreement. Once that's been hammered out and everything's been agreed on, then you can have the leaders meet so they can sign whatever documents have been agreed on. That's the Russian formula to resolve this conflict. And that's usually how these types of conflicts, that's usually how all wars are resolved, I guess, in negotiations of this type. You don't have the leaders of both sides just turn up one day somewhere and they just say, okay, what do you think? Yeah, okay, we'll sign this. Okay, we're done. That's usually not how such complicated conflicts get resolved. It's going to be a long process. It's going to be a long process, and it's going to need a lot of people and experts working on it. So anyway, that's the Russian formula, and you know what? It does look like Witkoff is starting to understand that. Yermak was in New York the other day, and my understanding of the meeting that Witkoff had with Yermak was that Witkoff was basically telling Yermak, look, we've got to have experts working with Russia. You guys got to put together a team. We got to get experts to sit down with the Russians over a certain period of time so we can go through all of the issues that need sorting out. And then we can get to the meeting of the leaders. So it does look like there is a part of the Trump White House that is starting to move in Russia's direction as far as the process to resolve the conflict in Ukraine. They're starting to understand that the way Russia sees this is the right way to go about this. So anyway, that's the update on that. And Axios, they're reporting that Europe wants to sabotage the peace process. Quite a scoop from Axios. The White House believes Europe is secretly undoing Ukraine war's end. Big shocker. Wow, what a scoop from Axios. Europe wants to sabotage the peace process, huh? Didn't see that one coming. I thought the Europeans, they were looking to get along with Russia. They were looking to find a peace and get along with Russia and to put this horrific conflict behind them. Nope. According to Axios, the Europeans, they're sabotaging this and they want the conflict to keep on going. We have a quote here from a White House official. The Europeans don't get to prolong this war and backdoor unreasonable expectations while also expecting America to bear the cost, the top White House official told Axios. If Europe wants to escalate this war, that will be up to them, but they will be hopelessly snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. It's an interesting statement from this White House official. Huh? They will be hopelessly snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. When did the collective West ever have victory in their jaws? I don't know. Anyway, the Europeans obviously are going to sabotage any possibility for any type of resolution to Project Ukraine, obviously, because the Europeans, they need the United States invested in Europe, and Project Ukraine is their vehicle to keep the United States invested in Europe. How many times do we have to say this on the Duran, on this channel? That's what Ukraine means to the Europeans. Ukraine for the Europeans is their way to keep the U.S. money coming into Europe. That's what it's about. That's why Project Ukraine is so important to them. If Project Ukraine is resolved, their fear is that the U.S. will shift towards China, towards the Pacific, towards Asia. They don't want that. They want the U.S. focus and investment and money flowing to Europe. And Project Ukraine is their way of keeping that money flowing into Europe, which keeps them in their jobs, which keeps them earning fat salaries, which keeps the United States invested in the European project, in NATO, in the EU. That's why Project Ukraine is so important to them. So yeah, they're going to try to sabotage any peace. They're going to try to drag this thing out. They're going to try to escalate tensions with Russia, all in an effort to keep the United States invested in Europe. This is their greatest fear. Their greatest fear is that the U.S. is going to pivot away from Europe. And when the U.S. pivots away from Europe, they take their money with them, right? That's what this is all about, man, for the Europeans. Even Peter Szijjártó, the foreign minister of Hungary, said as much. He posted on X, at today's EU foreign ministers meeting in Copenhagen, it became clear that Brussels and most member states are preparing for a long war, not peace. They want to send tens of billions of euros to Ukraine for soldiers' salaries, drones, weapons, and the operation of the Ukrainian state. There was huge pressure for the fast-tracked EU accession of Ukraine, new sanctions on Russian energy, and 6 billion euros more from the European peace stability to arm Ukraine. So there you have it from the Hungarian foreign minister, Peter Szijjártó, saying that Europe wants to prolong this war. Not to win, but to keep the U.S. invested in Europe. They're afraid of the United States walking away from Europe. So the top commander of the Russian military, Valery Gerasimov, he gave an update on the conflict in Ukraine. He said that the operation, the Ukraine operation, the SMO, will continue. He said that at the moment, what is going on the front lines is that the Ukraine military is basically plugging up holes across a very extensive front line where Russia holds the advantage, the initiative across the entire front line. He said that the Ukraine military has a difficult situation holding back the Russian advances. And so what they have to do is that when the Russians advance in one area on the front line, they have to bring up reserves to stabilize that area on the front line, and then Russia just advances in a different part of the front line, and then Ukraine has to take those forces, those reserves, and move them to that part of the front line. And basically, Gerasimov, he painted a picture of the Ukraine military right now in the position of having to constantly move forces around in order to plug up holes where the Russian military chooses to advance. So that was the picture that Gerasimov put out there during his briefing. He also gave an update, one second, on the situation with the 4 oblasts and how much of that territory is now under Russian control. Let me see if I have it. Here we go. According to Gerasimov, Russian troops have liberated 99.7% of the territory of Lugansk People's Republic. Less than 60 square kilometers remain, and 79% of the territory of the Donetsk People's Republic. He added that 74% of Zaporozhye region and 76% of Kherson region are now under the control of Russian forces. All 4 former Ukrainian regions voted to join Russia in referendums in September 2022. So that's the territorial update from Gerasimov. I had no idea that Kherson was 76%. It's almost at the same level with Donetsk. Donetsk is at 79% under Russian military control, according to Gerasimov. So we have the big meeting in China, everyone, the SCO. And Putin is there. Putin arrived. Modi arrived. And Lula, he is talking about an emergency BRICS meeting so that they can put together a strategy to deal with Trump's tariffs. And Modi met with Xi Jinping. Huge meeting between China and India. And Xi Jinping said the dragon and the elephant must unite. The world is moving towards transformation. China and India are the two most civilizational countries, the two most populous powers in the world, and part of the global south. It is vital to be friends and good neighbors. The dragon and the elephant must unite. The dragon and the elephant must unite. The bear is also there in China to help them unite. That rhymes. The bear is also there. The dragon, the elephant, and the bear. Isn't it about time that the eagle find a way to get along with the bear, with the elephant, and with the dragon? I'm not saying the US has to join BRICS. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not even saying they have to be allies or best buddies. But isn't the ideal situation for the world, for world stability and security, for the eagle to get along, to find a way to work together with the bear, the elephant, and the dragon? Does the EU have an animal? Do they have some sort of an animal to represent the European Union? I don't think they do. Yeah, they haven't reached that level, nor will they ever reach that level anyway. Look, a big meeting between China and India, and the Trump administration's plans to break India off from BRICS has completely failed. It has completely backfired. BRICS is more united than ever. India and China are also going to resume commercial flights, which is a very good development as well. So the European Union cuts off commercial flights, right? They cut off Russian flights, while BRICS, they work to create commercial flights. They work to restore travel and commercial flights between countries, even countries that have complicated, long-standing disputes, territorial disputes. BRICS works to resolve those disputes, and they work to connect people and bring people together, right? The European Union, they cut off flights. Says a lot, doesn't it? So they finished this. What do you guys think? In other videos, when I walked around this area, it was under construction. Now it's all done. This is it. All right, let's do some more news and we'll wrap up this Sunday video. Oh man, it's hot today. The Telegraph is saying that Trump is in talks to deploy private army to Ukraine. Right, Trump is going to send mercenaries to Ukraine, as if the United States is not already sending mercenaries to Ukraine. As if there aren't any US mercenaries already in Ukraine. Anyway, this is what he's telling the Europeans, right? No US boots on the ground, but let me see if I can get some of the big mercenary companies to maybe help you guys with your security guarantees. Ridiculous, man. Yeah, if you think that Russia's going to go after the NATO troops in Ukraine. Can you imagine how Russia would go after the mercenaries? Like big, large mercenary organizations in Ukraine. Man, the Russian military would go after them hard, man. They wouldn't last very long. Not a good idea. What else? Salvini, he said that there will be no Italian troops in Ukraine. None at all. Some believe that tomorrow we should send our soldiers in boots, helmets, and rifles to fight and die in Ukraine. No, no, no. It's time to act diplomatically, he said. And Vander Crazy, she was visiting some military facility, smiling as they were taking pictures of her holding drones. She's smiling as she's holding one of these, as she's touching one of these death machines. Tells you a lot about van der Leyen. Anyway, the Financial Times, they have an article with the title, EU to tap entire 150 billion loan for arms program. France, Italy, Spain, and Poland among countries requesting support from the project designed to spur defense spending. The loans for arms program, where countries in the European Union, the broke and bankrupt countries in the European Union, will take out loans from a broke and bankrupt European Union so that they can send weapons, so that they can purchase weapons and then send those weapons to a broke and bankrupt Ukraine. That's a real good idea. That's going to work out really well for France, Italy, Spain, and Poland. It's going to work out really well for you guys. The Loan for Arms program. So instead of taking money from the EU, not that the EU has any money to give, but let's just say they did. Instead of taking money from the EU so you can build, I don't know, hospitals or schools, nah. We're going to get loans from the European Union so that we can purchase weapons to send to Zelensky. Oh man, what a clown world. Anyway, van der Leyen, she was speaking from this military facility, and she said that the way the security guarantees are going to work is that you're going to have a first line of defense, which will be Ukraine. Then you're going to have a second line of defense, which will be the coalition of the willing, along with the United States backstop. Trump is saying one or two planes will be flying around, but Ursula is talking about a United States backstop. Anyway, that's the second line of defense. And then she said the third line of defense will be Europe itself. So that's the plan that Ursula laid out as she was speaking at this facility. Ursula, now we're getting into clown world territory. Ursula also called Putin a predator.
Also advancing the work on the use of the Russian frozen assets, because it's clear that the predator has to pay for what he did. At the same time, as you described...
This is the second time that she's called Putin a predator, not a predator, not the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Predator. No, she called him a predator. Very, very different. A predator is one thing. She's trying to say predator. Her script writers have come up with this new line of attack towards Putin, where they're going to start labeling him a predator. Right, a predator. I'm saying it with a New York accent, but no, she can't say that word. She's saying a predator. So a predator is someone who dates before going on a date. I made that up, by the way. I'm making up the definition of a predator, which is what Ursula says Putin is. It's a date before the date. That is what a predate is. And a predator is a person who regularly engages in predating, the act of meeting a person before committing to a future proper date. For example, here's an example sentence. Putin is a predator. He first meets for a coffee before deciding on dinner and a movie. It's actually quite a clever strategy to predate, huh? Putin's very smart because according to Ursula, he's a predator. So he'll go on a date He'll go on a meeting before he actually goes on the date, which is very, very smart. You save time, you save money. Both sides save time, money, they get to know each other before they decide to actually go on a full, real date. You predate. Right, Ursula? Right. Putin, the predator, not the predator, not the Schwarzenegger predator. He's a predator. So there were the rumors yesterday that Trump was dead, that Trump had died. What was going on with that, man? It was trending on Google and on social media that Trump was missing for a couple of days. He had not posted anything for 24 hours or something like that. And there were rumors saying that something had happened to him. And a lot of this was started because Vance, in an interview, he said that he's ready to become president if something were to happen to Trump, or something along those lines happened. During an interview, Vance said something like that. And then Trump disappeared for like 24 hours or 12 hours. And everyone was saying that something happened to Trump. And it was trending on social media. And then eventually Trump, he showed up at a golfing event on a golf course, proving that nothing had happened to him. Reminds me of the whole Putin has had 40 heart attacks and Shoigu has had 60 heart attacks, and all of these rumors that the collective West media likes to spread. Oh, man. All right. We will end it there. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble and Telegram and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch, like what I'm wearing in this video update. There is a link in the description box down below. Take care.